Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Go for a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
'Tis the season for shopping and hopefully scoring some great deals while you're at it. Which is great because with Rakuten, it's also the season for stacking up the savings. Use Rakuten to stack cash back on top of holiday sales at thousands of stores like Levi's, Best Buy, and Sephora. That's right, that's savings on top of savings. With Rakuten, you can save money on gifts for everyone on your list. From toys for the little one, to kitchen gear for the hostess with the mostest, to electronics for yourself. Shopping with Rakuten means you get to spend more time locating the perfect gift and less time trying promo codes that don't work. And did I mention that Rakuten is super easy to use? Just start your shopping at Rakuten.com or in the Rakuten app. Feel free to browse and shop just like you normally would, and then you get cash back by PayPal or check. It's truly a no-brainer. Join for free at Rakuten.com or download the Rakuten app. That's Rakuten. Rakuten.com.
What are your dreams worth to you? How hard would you fight for them? Would you hurt someone for them? How badly? We'll find out one woman's answers to these questions in today's story, The Devil's Chair. Hi, and welcome to Undertow, Realm's podcast that winds down roads both weird and wicked. I'm your host, Fred Greenhalgh, and also the director of today's show. We are connecting the rocky coast of down East Maine with the equally sharp cliffs of Ireland as we debut a new one-woman show penned by and starring Méabh de Brún. You may know Méabh from The Silt vs. Omen and The Secret of St. Kilda, but did you know that in addition to her many acting talents, Méabh is a hell of a writer, weaving together the uncanny and the all-too-human. And today's tale puts us in the theater hall for a comedy show that none of us are likely to soon forget. So let's put on a warm Undertow welcome as we bring to the stage Méabh de Brún as Dearbhla Ashe in part 1 of The Devil's Chair.
Put your hands together for Dearbhla Ashe performing Burn It to Ash, the final show.
Well, are ye well? 'Cause you're looking well. Oh, pure shite, can't see a thing. These lights, Christ. I'll assume you're out there. Will we do a show? Yeah, we'll do an owl show. But I have to warn you, I'm not doing a comedy show. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to tell you a story. This is one woman's descent into madness in a tight 35. This is the last show of the Burnt Ash tour. And it's going to be my last show ever. That's a really impressive thing for me to say, by the way. When I was small, my mother used to lure me to bed by walking backwards into my room with a camcorder. I'd follow her in my nappy, voguing. Needed attention. Didn't actually get it that often. When I was 5, my parents forgot me at the Garden of Remembrance. It's a flat lawn that's 1/3 graves. You'd have to be actively trying. I blame the American genes. I'm 50% Yank, born in America, but Mom took against the place and spirited me back to Ireland with nothing but the clothes on our backs. So my formative years were spent in Ireland. And the Irish have this word, notions. Do you know about notions? Wearing a coat that's a primary colour? That's notions. Gourmet crisps in a bowl? Notions. Fancy sticks in a vase? Complete notions. Think thinking you have talents and skills and that you have something to offer the world? Pure fucking notions! In Ireland, if you give any indication that you believe you're capable of rising above your lot, you're branded with delusions of grandeur and stoned to death in the town square. Oh, Mammy had no time for notions. Nothing wrong with this crab bucket, she'd say, claw wrapped around my ankle while I... Yankee Doodle Daddy was out of the picture by the time I hit double digits. You don't know guilt until you've been the sole spawn of a single Irish mammy. Didn't stop me blaming the woman, though. She was holding me back. I was a rising comedy star in my head. We barely had 2 pennies to rub together, but I did have an American passport. And later on, I had an American passport and a dream. 2 of the most self-destructive tools of an underdeveloped brain. I went to America to make it. Make what? Mostly make my parents sad. No, I'm kidding. They're dead. Think about how well you treated your body in your 20s. Now, think about how well you'd treat your body in your 20s if you were living on another continent, sleeping in your boyfriend's van, and trying to break into an entertainment industry that happens in bars. I went 5 years without eating a vegetable. Couldn't go home, though. If you want to escape the crab bucket, you gotta kick it over. Burn the bridge. That was scary. But not as terrifying as the idea that I might ever go back. Talking about terrifying, did you ever notice there's a thin line between horror and comedy? A bad movie is just bad, but a bad horror is hilarious. It's about the angle you look at it. Comedy is trauma plus time, when all you can do is laugh. Like a little girl lost in a graveyard. Hard times, rough stuff, but I started to get gigs. Actual paying shows, just enough to justify grinding on. The days strung together in a haze of motels and bad diner food. 15 years of that. 15. Christ. I heard through the grapevine that Dad kicked it. Mam died while I was dragging myself through Ohio. Stand-up in Ohio is easy for an Irish comedian. You just replace all the bits about potatoes with corn. Jesus. I'm not painting a good picture of Ireland tonight, am I? That comes with being in America. The Irish, we play it up. I was in Walmart and a cashier asked if we lived in thatched houses and I said, "What's a house?" Ireland has cappuccinos. It has iPhones and electric cars. Ireland is a wealthy country. I, on the other hand, was poor, living off gigs. The grind. And then I was in Ohio and my mouth was killing me. I went to a dentist I couldn't afford, certain he'd tell me I had a dead tooth. Turns out, after all that grind, I was grinding my teeth. If I wanted to avoid damage, I needed an expensive retainer. Well, I could leave a lot of other bodily bits fall apart, but not the moneymaker. And then, like something out of a film, I got a call from the Estes Hotel in Eastport, Maine, offering me a steady paycheck to perform 3 times a week in a town of about 1,000 people during the arse end of the holiday season. My big break, it was not. But that's where our story begins. It started on the beach. I say beach. O'Sullivan's Cove wasn't a proper beach, just a curved bit of sand beside Kendall Head Road. Eastport was mad for the tourism, but they didn't even have it on the website. The heat was a flat, dead thing, a carcass stretched over sand speckled with flies and rotting seaweed. I was in a raincoat, feeling like boil in the bag rice, watching a sea fog roll in along the cliffs, or sea smoke, as locals called it. Depending on which way the wind blew, in about 5 hours the whole town would either be out enjoying a sunny evening or smothered in a fog that'd keep doors closed. You'd think it'd be the other way around, that people would want a show on the dark, wet nights. Well, that's when people stay home. Survival instinct kicks in. They cluster round the fire, bar the door. Do you know when you're all alone and feeling sorry for yourself for being alone, then you realise you're not alone? I had a Cocker Spaniel when I was small, so I clocked the breed on sight. All floppy and bounding, fur the golden colour of tea before the milk. It sprang free of a small man, protecting his bald pate with one of those floppy fisherman hats. He puffed his way after it with a rueful little smile. Awkward. I was like, do I watch him? Do I ignore him? Opted to pet the dog, check her tag. Ruth. That was funny. Not funny ha-ha, funny like, well, kind of funny ha-ha. Who names a dog Ruth, right? Never mind, we'll get to that. What's actually important about this scenario is that I know about Cocker Spaniels. Like, I know they're prone to cataracts and are considered to have an unstable temperament. Most pertinently, I know that Cocker Spaniels commonly suffer from extreme separation anxiety when away from their owner, which made it all the more hilarious that this dog did not like this guy. This guy who was weeble-wobbling across the sand to collect his beloved hound as she tried to laminate herself to a stranger's calves. Almost made me like him. Fishing hat flapping, face gone puce. What kind of pathetic do you have to be, not only to not be liked by your dog, but to not be liked by a dog that has been specifically bred to like you? He landed up and I had to at least give him a pity convo. So I smile and I say, how ya? And he says, Dearbhla Ashe, that's an Irish name, isn't it? You're thinking, yeah, Derv. The only other Irish person you've met greets you like that. Definitely not a stalker. Totally normal. Strange man, dog hates him, and he knows your name. What next? Do you want to write your own copy for the True Crime podcast? Or maybe you're thinking, of course he knew your name. You're Dearbhla Ashe. But I wasn't Dearbhla Ashe back then. I was just Derv. Stinking of sweat in a plastic raincoat. Back then, there were no posters with my face on them. Except, apparently, for a bunch of A4 pages that had been slapped around town advertising the cabaret at the Estes Hotel. Fishing hat man had seen one. My first ever time getting recognised. Momentous. And, where was it that you saw it? I asked him, preening. He tells me it's hanging in Ray's Mustard Mill Museum. Ah, lads, the glamour. I knew Ray's. Oh, I was practically a local at that point. I wasn't used to being in one spot for so long. Getting to know Eastport was a novelty. I saw everything. I went to the smokehouse. I went to Ray's Mustard Mill Museum. I went to the Tides Institute and Museum of Art to see their folklore exhibit. That's where I learned about Irish immigration into Maine. Which is probably why we all have the same kind of stories about the devil being, you know, just some guy. A bit of a gom. Like an Egypt. And he just hangs around, making deals. The museum had a bit about a rock out by Hillside Cemetery in Eastport. It's called the Devil's Chair. And that's where the devil will meet you to strike a deal. On your time. No delegation by him. And there was a story, no, I swear to God, there was a story about a man who made a pact with the devil for his soul. And when the debt came due, he didn't want to pay it off. So the devil said he'd free him if he could set a task the devil himself couldn't perform. So the man handed the devil a paper bag, bent over and broke wind, and said, if you can put all the stink in that bag, you can have my soul. But that's exactly like Irish stories about the devil. In all our stories, you can talk to the devil, plumoss him, cajole him, outsmart him, like he's a person. But he isn't. He isn't a person.
For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%. So that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Meaningless stuff. Why do we gift so much meaningless stuff? Tired of generic gifts and hollow trends? Shutterfly allows you to create meaningful photo gifts for your family and friends. Whether it's a cozy fleece blanket for grandma, a stunning canvas print for mom, or a mug to make dad smile. Enjoy 40% off with code MAKE40 at Shutterfly.com and make something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
Well, anyway, he grinned, and when he did, I had to take a beat. He had one dead tooth right beside the incisor. My mum had that exact same dead tooth. God, that's bad. Oh, that's like some weird Irish stereotype. Normal people are like, dearest mama loved roses in the summertime. I'm over here like, your dead tooth reminds me of me ma. But listen, the guy smiled and he was Irish. If he murdered me, he'd never find out how my mam's great aunt and his second cousin were best friends in primary school. So yeah, I smiled back. But before we could start the whole meeting another Irish person abroad dance, he sort of leaned towards me conspiratorially and he reached out like he was going to put his hand on my arm and I yelped. Put the dog to shame. I really didn't want him to touch me. I mean, he was just this harmless little old man, but I caught sight of his hands and he had these long, thin fingers. I know, right? What was I like? Anyway, he ignored me and he didn't touch me, just leans in like we're sharing a secret and goes, working in the entertainment industry, I hear it's a hard old life. I get that a lot from people. Why do you put yourself through it? I trotted out my rote response. Do you know, it is. It is a hard owl life, but I'll do anything for attention. Anything? He asks. Anything, says I. And then he's laughing, and I'm laughing, and he says, sure, it'll all be worth it in the end. And I say, it'd fecking want to be. And he says, maybe he'll make the show. And I say, well, that'd be great. I'm obviously the only part of it worth watching, but the rest of them could use the support. And he laughs again, and then he's gone. dragging his dog named Ruth across the beach. I stood listening to the waves, thinking about how it turned out to be a nice encounter. Then I looked down and realised I was standing in a puddle of dog piss. And that was Eastport, really. By the time I made it back to the Estes Hotel, I was drenched in sweat. The building loomed on Estes Head Cliff, overlooking a sheer granite drop into a frothy, violent ocean. Sea smoke rolled in, bringing with it a sodden evening that would hem any potential audience within their own walls. The fog did the hotel a favour, though, covering up the cracking plaster of its crumbling edifice. But there was no fog to cover the water stains on the walls, the loose half panelling, threadbare furniture that hadn't seen upkeep since the 70s. You know the line, "What's a girl like you doing in a place like this?" No one ever said that to me. Maybe my own edifice was crumbling. As an entertainer, I'd neither the deference afforded to guests nor the freedom afforded to staff. Just a truly shit limbo. Like living in an airport. Or Ohio. My hopes for tourists or townies were dwindling. The whole thing hinged on new guests. Because you might go and see a band twice. Hell, you might go see a magician again. But if someone told you the same jokes, woof. The cabaret consisted of a band, a magician, and me. 3 nights a week, we performed in the hotel ballroom on a low stage surrounded by small tables where guests were served bad drinks and charcuterie with the consistency of cardboard. The fog pressed against the windows. The room was half empty and half of them were there for the bar. I got laughs, though. I always did. A couple of new jokes, a twist on the old ones. I worked for it. The stage lights were so weak, I could see every face in front of me. Every second that I lost them. There was always one joke, on any given night, one joke that an enthusiastic audience would carry but slapped dead when your crowd was a bunch of corpses. And every single time, the drummer did that thing, you know, the... I hated it. It was lazy, like a jump scare in a horror film. But I couldn't say that I hated it because then I'd be a dry shite. And if I played along, tried to point at him before he did it, well, that would be when he wouldn't. And he'd still get the laughs. So I chuckled and grimaced every time. That usually got some new guests back on board, empathising, pity laughs. But the ones who'd seen the show before, they'd realise it was a gimmick. The lights were weak. I could watch their faces settle into distaste. The magician was on after me. We often compared and contrasted who had the harder gig. I think it comes down to which people hate more, being told the same joke twice, or magicians. But I was at a disadvantage. Instead of being a pale asthmatic in a cape or a greasy pencil mustached creep, our magician was a larger-than-life biker babe with wildflower tattoos who ate fire. Unfair. And I can't drive a motorcycle, so I had to borrow the drummer's crappy Nissan Versa if I wanted to get anywhere. Frankly, the magician should have been offering me lifts. She was an aficionado of bad horror films and she had the room next to mine. Every night I had to listen to tinny screams through the paper-thin walls. The band was on after her. After our sets, the magician and I usually shared a quick smoke outside the fire escape. Had the added benefit of hiding us from the entertainment officer, a reedy woman who vibrated with quivering intensity. The cabaret was her idea. She loved having artists at the hotel and was always trying to come up with ways to use us. Unfortunately, these ways had little to do with things like skills or personal preference. We learned our lesson when we found ourselves the special guest dancers at geriatric Zumba. And then the magician asked if I had heard that I was getting usurped by a baby. The manager's niece wanted to be a comedian. I'd be expected to mentor. I picked tobacco off my tongue, watched the grey wall close in, and gave serious thought to flinging myself off the cliff. Maybe it won't be so bad, the magician said, her mouth a wry twist. You can reconnect with your art. My art. It was a joke, so I laughed. Threw down the smouldering butt. Ground it out. I finished that night like I finished most of them, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, listening to cheap special effects and fake screams through the wall. Work on my art. The art of comedy. Like we weren't grinding out the same shit night after night for whatever pennies got thrown in our hat. I was an artist once. I took notes after every gig, tightened every punchline. I did my grind, and it's called grind for a reason. Pubs and clubs, green rooms, grey rooms and freezing alleys. Days driving, nights in a van, pot noodles, washing myself in sinks. My art. I was 35. I was ground down. I was putting in my hours for a paycheck. As I was doing my usual pre-sleep routine of deciding if the stain looked more like Abe Lincoln or a map of Italy, I realised the Irish man in the fishing hat never came to see the show. And I was disappointed. That's it. That's the joke. By then, I'd been to all the galleries and museums in Eastport. All 5. I started walking, seeing the sights. Matthews Island, a nature preserve, only accessible at low tide. Shackleford Head State Park, where you could stand in the middle of a forest and listen to the sea. The drummer was happy to hand over his car keys anytime I wanted to wander. I just had to grin and bear the jokes about making sure I didn't drive on the wrong side of the road. Again. It was one time! Anyway, yeah, got fierce into the walking. I used to try and cajole the magician to come out with me. Oh, we could check out the Devil's Chair! Sell our souls! Fierce crack! Well, she never said yes, but that was okay, because I knew she'd never say yes, and I had absolutely no intention of going to the Devil's Chair because you had to go up through Hillside Cemetery to get to it. Massive, open, flat graveyard on a slope, with a thicket of trees right at the back. And I don't do graveyards, but I kept asking because it really annoyed her and I was into that. They say that your relationship with your parents affects your romantic relationships later in life. So my type has always been kind of fucking hates me. I've only had one serious relationship. We were living together, the whole shebang. God, breakups when you live together. The worst, right? Now, I was the one who had to leave, which felt unfair. It was my home too. But you know, his mom wanted the van back. No, I'm kidding. No one wanted that van. It was a Ford Ecoline, the Scooby-Doo van. Puke brown, smelled like cabbage. The only thing worse than being physically evicted from your home is when your home tries to run you down and kill you. Home is where the heart is. Oh, home would have intersected with a lot of vital organs if I hadn't jumped in that ditch. Yes, it's funny. I loved him and he tried to kill me. Or maybe I decided I loved him after he tried to kill me. I mean, what a gesture. I was there Googling sentences for vehicular homicide. 15 years for me. So no, I didn't actually care if the magician came on a hike with me. We weren't friends. I didn't do friends. The life I had, no one cared enough to keep tabs. If you relied on someone, they'd rely on you right back. Who needs that? I was alone the next day when I was told by the entertainment officer that I wouldn't be able to head on my hike. They needed me around. I was standing in the lobby in my walking boots, mouth open to complain, when this girl slammed open the double doors, sea wind flooding in her wake. She made a beeline for us, face all bright and beaming, luggage rattling behind her. It was the baby comedian, the one I was supposed to mentor. She was a child, barely over 20. I'm not even jealous of youth. It's the fetishization that gets to me. When you hit the wrong side of 30 and you haven't made it, people start looking at you a bit like, Her name was Aisling. She was the manager's niece over from Tipperary, his brother having migrated and found himself a Colleen Das. Which is freakish, frankly. It's supposed to be the other way around. She was lanky, like her bones had grown too quick. She dressed like the 70s were back. Everybody liked her, even when she fell over her stupid clogs into the drum kit. The magician kept making her eyes big at me and jerking her head, telling me to go, what? Impart my wisdom. Cop on. Of course they liked her. She wasn't their problem. Not only was I her Mr. Miyagi of mirth, but we were both Irish. The entertainment officer was wetting herself. Kaylee's Irish dancing. Do either of you play the Bowran? Did we have a Bowran? Not at all, but that wouldn't stop her. I looked at Aisling, she looked at me. Sure, look. There's fierce bonding to be had in trying not to laugh. She was a baby. She was nervous. So I showed her where the spot would hit. The mic was prone to sticking on the stand, so I taught her how to twist it off. Told her to look past the faces, not to focus. I asked her did she want to run her set for me, and all she had were some notes she made on the plane. Oh, I knew she was going to stumble and stutter to a silent room and come off saying she'd never do it again. The least I could do was sand off the edges. You already know how it went. She was good. She was so good. On a strange stage, under a stationary spotlight in front of about 5 people. Her whole set was about her flight, the cliché of stand-up. But she layered it with teenage anecdotes about the now derelict local pub. Used titles from the assigned reading list of her abandoned degree as a structure. Turned it all into a narrative exploring her decision to leave home for America to try and make it. And she nailed it. And yeah, she talked about being Irish, but there was no paddywhackery. No tongue-in-cheek shite about alcoholism or thatched cottages. It wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't a joke. It was real. They saw her. And she still made them laugh. People heard the laughing from the lobby. Came in to see what the fuss was about. Sure, there were flubs, but she caught every single one. She was more there than anything else in the room. Like sea smoke had risen from the floorboards and obscured everything but her. She glowed. She was electric. Do you understand? She was electric. That's what's trendy now in comedy. Getting vulnerable, getting real. God forbid some of us might not want to talk about that shit on stage. God forbid that some things not be offered up for the laughs. She came off stage and hugged me, told me how much I helped her, that she was so excited for this chance to practice. The whole time I was thinking, it's fine, she's a novelty. Next time the shine will be gone. She'll be as battered and boring as I am. Oh, the following night, she had a whole new set. And the night after that. And then she started melding them, placing different sections in contrast, experimenting for maximum impact. Like a chef, like a composer, like an artist. You know, horror and comedy are the best bedfellows. Both follow the rule of the punchline. Set up your scare, your joke, and then deliver it with the biggest impact possible. A woman wastes her life chasing a dream. Is that scary? Is it funny? Is this the punchline? She was excited she could use my job to practice. Before she walked down the glittering path ahead of her, I had nothing lined up. My future was a black hole. My past was a black hole. A scrapbook of dark clubs and interchangeable strangers. A dead mother with a dead tooth. Well, I suppose they're all dead now. Oh, Dearbhla, you still have time to make a life. Why don't you settle down? Because I don't want to be a wife. I don't want to be a mother. I didn't want to be a daughter. I don't even want to be a friend. I want to be the talent. I want to be the artist. The artist at work. That's a joke. Laugh.
And that was The Devil's Chair, Part 1. We'll be returning next time to hear how dear Dearbhla reacts to having a new gifted comedian in her midst. And of course, being Undertow, it's gotta go great. The Devil's Chair was written by Méabh de Brún, starring Méabh de Brún as Dearbhla Ashe, directed by Fred Greenhalgh, produced by Fred Greenhalgh and Ella Watts. Dialogue editing, sound design, and music by Catherine Seaton. Recorded at Soundcaster Studios in Dublin, Ireland. Undertow is a production of Realm, hosted by Fred Greenhalgh, produced by Nicole Kreutter, associate produced by Devin Shepard, executive produced by Fred Greenhalgh and Molly Barton, theme by Hubert Campbell. Find more shows like Undertow on Apple, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are served.
Next Gen Console Watch is the IGN show discussing the latest gaming hardware. Whether it's the PS5 Pro, Nintendo Switch 2, or something new from Xbox, it's all fair game on Next Gen Console Watch. Hosted by myself, Damon Hatfield, a 20-year IGN veteran, I am joined by my co-hosts, Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked, and Max Scoville, host of IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond. I will try to keep these console war discussions civil, but no promises. Listen to Next Gen Console Watch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes every Friday.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Buntwine, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The Heresies of Redolf Buntwine, wherever podcasts are available.